After watching this video, your reality might change. By the way, this is a true story. If you don't want to change your current reality, feel free to stop watching now. But if you're someone who wants to change a painful reality, or if you want to improve your life, reality is created by our beliefs. Reality is nothing more than what the brain creates. You might have heard this before, but today, I'm going to explain how this works using psychology and neuroscience. Wait, what? Is this the truth behind reality? By watching this video, your beliefs about what reality is might completely shift. And it could actually change your reality. Because reality is created by your beliefs. Since reality is created by your beliefs, if you change your beliefs, your reality changes too. This is a scientifically proven truth. That's why this video has the potential to truly change your reality. And it's highly recommended for those who want to transform their lives. Hello, I'm Japanese Urban Sage. Today, we'll explore what reality really is, something we think we know but don't truly understand. This is a life-changing, must-keep guide that could transform the rest of your life. Here's the structure of the video. How we perceive reality. How to change reality without changing reality. Let's start with the first point. What is reality? Neuroscience and psychology. First, we need to understand that there are two types of reality. Objective reality. Subjective reality, the reality inside your brain. Objective reality refers to facts and phenomena that can be observed and verified independently of an individual's awareness or senses. This is the universal reality that physics investigates. But what we actually experience is subjective reality, the reality in our brain. Why? Because we can only perceive reality through our brain. So how does the brain recognize reality? The way we perceive reality has already been discovered by modern science. First of all, it's known through modern physics that all matter is vibrating. Whether it's bread, a glass, or anything else, every object has a unique frequency and everything vibrates. This is scientifically confirmed. Everything in the universe, including humans, is made of particles. These particles are always vibrating. In fact, it's these particles that come together to form objects like humans or bread. This means that the material universe, from chairs to smartphones, is made of vibrations, and we live within these waves of vibrations. We use our five senses, sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste, to collect information from these vibrations and waves. This is not some spiritual concept, but a scientific fact that was observed and confirmed about 100 years ago by physicists. Take, for example, how we hear sound. A bell doesn't actually ring. It simply vibrates. Our ears collect this vibrating wave information, and our brain interprets it, so we perceive a ringing sound. Vision works the same way. Our eyes gather vibrational and wave information, light, and the brain processes it into images. For example, colors like red or blue don't exist in the objects themselves. Our brains interpret the frequencies of objects as red or blue. Let's dive deeper into frequencies. Blue vibrates about 700 trillion times per second, while red vibrates about 450 trillion times. Our eyes detect these frequencies, and the brain processes them into the colors we see. When a frequency drops below 400 trillion times, we can't see it anymore, but we can feel it as heat. In other words, while our eyes can't see certain frequencies, our skin can still sense them. So we live in a material universe built on vibrations, and we use our senses to gather information from it. This is why spiritual traditions say, the body is the vehicle for the soul. It's the idea that our consciousness perceives and experiences the material universe through the body. Without our senses, we wouldn't be able to gather the vibrational data from the material universe, and thus, we wouldn't be able to experience it. Now that we have the basics, here are the 3 key points to understanding what reality is. The range of frequencies our senses can detect. How the visual cortex transforms information. The reality projected in the brain. Our senses can only detect a limited range of frequencies. For example, cell phone signals exist, but we can't see them. The same goes for sounds like the mosquito tone, which only young people can hear. There are many frequencies that our senses simply can't pick up. In fact, the range of vibrations we can detect is incredibly small. Just because we can't see or hear something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. In reality, the frequencies that we can't perceive far outnumber those we can. It's not surprising, then, that some people might perceive things others can't, such as auras or nature's voices. And here's the crucial point: we're not seeing reality as it is. What we see is filtered through our brain's belief system. For example, if you believe person A is attractive, they'll look more handsome than they might objectively be. Or if you believe work is hard, it will feel more exhausting. We all wear colored glasses, interpreting reality through our personal biases. We each have unique beliefs that filter the world around us, so even though we're all living in the same material universe, the version of reality that each of us experiences is different. This means that changing your beliefs will change how you see the world. I'll repeat that because it's important. Changing your beliefs changes your perception of reality, even if nothing else has changed. What we perceive isn't reality itself, but an image created by the brain based on vibrational data. So when we say, "I'm seeing reality," we're really seeing an image that our brain has constructed. This also means that we're all living in our own personal, brain-created reality. The reality projected in our brains. So, the physical world is not directly projected into our brains, rather, the vibrational information collected by our senses is converted into an image inside our brain. That's why, instead of actually seeing reality, we're seeing a reality that is created within our own brain. This means that what we think of as reality is just an image projected by our brain, one that can look just like the real world. A great example of this is AR augmented reality technology, like in Pokemon Go. In AR, virtual images are overlaid onto the real world, but something similar happens in our brain. A typical example is drug-induced hallucinations. When someone sees a ghost on their bed or a demon outside the window, their brain is projecting these images directly, making it seem like those things are really there. Our brains sometimes create images from imagination, thinking, "This must be what it looks like." So, we're not actually seeing reality as it is, but rather a version of reality that's created by our brain. But because we don't normally think about this, we assume that what we see is reality. In truth, what we call reality is nothing more than the personal universe we recognize within our brains. Now, let's get to the main point. It took a while to get here, but this next part is the most important. Here's the main point. The brain ignores anything it deems unimportant. Once the brain decides this is reality, it filters out everything else. The brain only perceives what the mind focuses on. The brain ignores anything it deems unimportant. Modern science has shown us that the brain automatically eliminates unimportant information. Processing every bit of information equally would be overwhelming and would hinder our survival. To prove this, look at the tip of your nose. Pause the video and try it. Huh? I can see my nose. That's right, your nose is always in your field of vision, but you don't normally notice it. Why? Because your brain automatically filters out unimportant information. That's why, for example, after deciding to drastically change your style and buy an expensive red jacket, you suddenly start noticing lots of people wearing red jackets. It's because until now, your brain deemed red jackets as unimportant and filtered them out. But now, since your focus has shifted, you start to notice them everywhere. The same happens when someone is pregnant. They start noticing other pregnant people everywhere. In short, when your beliefs or values change, the reality that your brain projects also changes. Changing reality doesn't mean changing the physical world. It means that the reality you experience in your brain changes, and as a result, your perception of the world shifts. This point is so important, I'll repeat it once again. When your beliefs change, the reality projected in your brain also changes. And when your perception changes, your emotions also change. When your emotions shift, your thinking and behavior naturally follow, and that's when your reality and life begin to change. It makes perfect sense, right? We act and think based on what we perceive and how we feel. So, when your beliefs change, your perception of reality changes, which leads to different thoughts and actions. And over time, your behavior changes, which eventually changes the reality you experience. When I began my journey of self-discipline, the first thing that changed was my perception, how I felt about the world and life. Naturally, my thinking and behavior started to shift as well. And after a while, my external reality began to change. This is the mechanism that neuroscience explains. The brain eliminates anything it doesn't believe is real. Each of us carries beliefs and assumptions about life, like this is what life is about. Once the brain decides this is reality, it filters out anything that contradicts that belief. This is a survival mechanism to reduce the brain's processing load. For example, my grandmother told me all my life, you should become a teacher, so I grew up with the belief that I would become a teacher. My reality was that I would become a teacher and live in my hometown. That was my reality. As a result, other possibilities felt unrealistic to me. Even though I had the freedom to choose other professions, my brain filtered out those options. I couldn't imagine working in a skyscraper or being a fisherman. Those realities weren't part of my world. Although I could theoretically choose any career, my brain didn't even register them as real possibilities. This led me to become a teacher in my hometown after graduation. But because I wasn't suited to being a teacher, I started to feel miserable. Why? Because that was my reality. My brain had automatically filtered out all other possibilities. Later, through self-discipline and personal development, I rewrote my life story. And my reality began to change, both mentally and physically. This doesn't just apply to life scripts. It also applies to how we view the world. For example, someone who gets caught up in conspiracy theories begins to see the world as a place controlled by a small group of powerful people. Their brain filters out any evidence that doesn't fit this narrative. Their brain collects information that confirms their beliefs, a process known as confirmation bias. They'll think, see? The world really is controlled by a small elite group. This strengthens their belief even more. At that point, it becomes nearly impossible for others to convince them otherwise. This isn't limited to conspiracy theories. The same mechanism is at work in religion or toxic relationships. Once the brain accepts something as a reality, it filters out all other possibilities. This mechanism affects all of us, all the time. We are all living in the reality our brain has decided is real. But since everyone's beliefs are different, the reality that each person experiences in their brain is also different. These differences are greater than you might think. It's astonishing how much reality varies from person to person. We've only ever seen the reality that our own brain projects, so it's hard to imagine someone else's reality. But the truth is, we're all seeing completely different realities. The reality that exists in our brain is made up only of what we focus on. I'm a beaver. Up until this moment, a beaver didn't exist in your reality. But now, suddenly, it does. We don't observe the material universe evenly and objectively. Only those who have attained enlightenment with a fifth-dimensional perspective can do so. For us, our reality is made up of what we focus on. In other words, the reality that exists in our brain is made up of what we are consciously aware of. For example, until this very moment, you probably never thought about Gabriel, who lives in Brazil, right? But Gabriel is living in Brazil right now. That's a part of objective reality. However, if you never focus your attention on Gabriel, then in your personal reality, it's as if Gabriel doesn't exist. This is because the reality that exists in your brain is constructed based on what you're paying attention to. And 95% of what we focus on is decided by our unconscious mind subconscious. Since 95% of our attention is governed by the unconscious, most of what we focus on, and therefore what our brain perceives as reality, happens without us even realizing it. This is why we tend to dwell on regrets like, I should have done this differently back then, or worry about the future, thinking, will everything be okay? When our focus is on the past or the future, the reality our brain creates is based on those times. Modern science tells us that we spend a lot of time thinking about things other than the present moment. In other words, we're hardly ever focused on the actual, present reality. Instead, we're spending much of our time imagining, like, I got so annoyed with that coworker today, or similar thoughts. Inside our brain, this imagination takes up a huge portion of our perceived reality. The past is imagination. The future is imagination. Regret and worry are also forms of imagination. Planning your life, finding meaning in life, deciding what's good or bad, superior or inferior, it's all imagination. Most of what we experience as reality is actually imagination. We humans, Homo sapiens, have brains that are designed to easily blur the lines between imagination and reality. That's why we live in a mixture of both. When we say, I want to change my reality, the first thing we need to do is change our negative imagination. How to erase negative imagination will be explained in future videos. This idea of a reality is made up of only what we focus on is also important from another angle. For example, let's talk about positive thinking. The world we live in has both positive and negative aspects to everything. For negative thinkers, their focus is always on the negative, which means the reality they experience in their brain feels like hell. No matter what they see, who they meet, or what they do, their brain only projects the negative side of things. This increases feelings of irritation, dissatisfaction, and anxiety, making life feel like a living hell. I know this because I was once that way. But for positive thinkers, their focus is on the positive aspects of things, so the reality they experience in their brain feels like heaven. No matter what they see, who they meet, or what they do, their brain highlights the positive side of things. As a result, they feel gratitude, happiness, and abundance throughout life, making life feel like heaven on earth. Thankfully, that's my current state. So, here's the conclusion. The method to change your reality is actually simple. We don't perceive the material universe as it really is. We're only living inside our personal, brain-created reality. And, in fact, everyone's brain-created reality is completely different from everyone else's. You, me, and everyone else are living in the same four-dimensional material world. But each of us is living inside our own brain's version of reality. There are about 8 billion people on Earth, and when it comes to brain-created reality, that means there are 8 billion different realities. So while 8 billion people share the same physical universe, in terms of brain-created reality, each person is living in their own perceived universe. This is the essence of what reality truly is. Now, let's talk about the concrete steps to change your reality. Simply put, there's no need to change reality. You just need to change your beliefs. Take, for example, the difference between societal success being a winner and life success being truly happy. Earlier in my life, I lived striving for societal success, where I sought to be a winner based on how others judged me. What mattered most to me was climbing the social ladder in human society and receiving recognition from others as someone who had made it a winner. This was driven by our primal instincts, similar to how monkeys strive to assert dominance within their group. In other words, my reality was a competitive society where I needed to become a winner, and my brain automatically filtered out any other possibilities. To succeed as a winner, everything else in my life was disregarded as unimportant. I believed that money was the key to winning. To win in life, it's all about money, I thought. That was my reality. When someone would say, life isn't about money, it didn't feel real to me. What about you? How do you feel when you hear that? However, after dedicating myself to personal development and self-discipline, I shifted my focus toward life success, becoming part of the happy group. As a result, my concept of "this is reality" began to change. What I deemed important began to shift. So the information my brain automatically selected and filtered also began to change. Eventually, my brain-created reality changed entirely. The world around me hadn't changed. The people in my life hadn't changed. The physical reality right in front of me hadn't changed. But by rewriting my beliefs, my brain-created reality transformed drastically. The way I saw the world and the way I felt about life began to shift. Naturally, my thoughts and actions started to change as well. And by changing my actions, the cumulative effect started to change my external reality, too. There are two main ways to change reality: changing the external world and changing your internal self. In truth, simply changing your internal self can alter your experience of reality. And over time, it can even change your actual physical reality. Say this out loud. There's no need to change reality. I just need to change my beliefs. When you change your beliefs, your experience of reality, and eventually the reality itself, will start to change. Now, let me share the perspective of a sage. By the way, my name in Japan is Nameless Sage. There's no need to change reality. You just need to change your beliefs. The history of Taoism spans 6,000 years, but there are no records of sages or immortals ever trying to transform society. Why? Because for those who are free from their beliefs, the reality they see is different. Concepts like superiority, inferiority, good or bad are merely beliefs, so the first step is to free yourself from them. And once you're free from beliefs, you'll begin to experience, how do I feel, and how does this world appear to me? And then, you'll realize, is this really true? That this universe has always been perfect, and there's no need to change anything. This material world exists because the balance of yin and yang, positive and negative, has been slightly disrupted. This balance is even being scientifically proven by the relationship between matter and antimatter. So once again, let me repeat. There's no need to change reality. You just need to change your beliefs. This is the worldview of Taoism. Together, let's live a joyful and fulfilling life. Thank you for sticking with me through this long discussion. I'm deeply grateful.